Welcome to another episode of War Hero to Superhero, helping military, veterans, and first responders transform their lives from the bedroom to the boardroom, no matter if it's virtual or not. I am your host, Daniel Faust, and before we get into the content, I want to give a shout out to Ginger and Dave on the great swag that they go over and provide us. This is our War Hero to Superhero t-shirt, which you've seen several before. We have now upgraded. Wrong side. We do hoodies now, so you can get our hoodie with our logo. We got the Phoenix on the back. We also got our beauty pole zippers and tank tops and everything. So if you want to go wear some awesome swag while being out and staying warm or cool, go to our website at reallydesigns.com and look for the Learn and Live shop. And if Learn and Live is not your taste, then you can go support other military veterans and their swag and their gear, because there's several military veterans and first responders. Let's go check the comments real quick. My favorite show. Great shirt. Thanks. Mikey, love for you to go over and just bring the comments away. That'd be great. All right, so let's jump in. We are taking off the mask this month, and this time I don't have a mask on to go show it. But the goal is now to take it off in the boardroom, because we've already started practicing taking it off in the bedroom with our significant others. We started helping our kids to take off the mask so they're not living in scarcity and inauthenticity. And now it's the scariest spot to go over and to do this in the boardroom. Because the hardest part in life is to be authentic, right? Go over and take that mask, be real, allow your feelings to be expressed and whatnot in the right place. And if you add the boardroom to this, it's scary time, isn't it? So we want to go over and to phase you in. So we're not just jumping into a super hard lesson. We're going to jump into a lesson that will hopefully blow your mind, because this is inspired by Doc McIntyre, which we'll get into a little bit. But our first lesson is to bring focus to your life. Focus, Daniel-san. Focus. Do you remember that in Karate Kid? Yeah. Well, we're going to go give you a little refresher of that real quick. So we're going to go over and full size the screen and get this started. So watch the clip. So as you're going over and see with Karate Kid and with Daniel, he couldn't break the ice blocks unless he focused. He had everybody around him, lots of pressure, lots of money, had Mr. Miyagi go over and pray. And that was an amazing feat. I think it was 6 ice blocks, if I remember. Great classic. I'd highly recommend it to watch in a high definition. Sorry for the graininess, it's YouTube, of course. So thank you, YouTube, for going over and providing that awesome clip. So, and thank you for Karate Kid for going and making a great example. So he couldn't break the ice blocks unless he focused. Well, the same thing is basically taking off the mask in the boardroom. Because if we don't go over and focus, we're going to go towards our default. And we're just going to go over, and when we feel something, we're just going to go do it. And then we're going to be regretful in the end. So this today lesson is inspired by the article Focus by Doc McIntyre. It was actually written 10/14/2020. It's a recent article. I do have it in email. I don't know where it is online yet. So if you're wanting a copy, go over and get back with me. I might just go post it in the show notes at the end. So what he went over and talked about is he gave a story about people in the boardroom when he was trying to correct communication. And what he actually found is that they needed to correct their focus. And it's the same similar thing is as we're taking off the mask. We tend to go over and put many other things instead of what we need. And what we really need to do is to put focus. So if we want to be authentic and real and to have thriving relationships from the bedroom to the boardroom, we have to go and focus. And Doc McIntyre goes over and goes through 5 to 6 points on how to go over and focus. His first point is focus means admitting that the organization has limitations and can't do everything well. When we went over and we talked about in the bedroom, we had to be vulnerable with our spouse to be who we really are, because when we date, we fake it until we make it, and then we go over and give our spouse and they become who they really are. And guess what? We're shocked, we're pissed, we're angry, we're frustrated, and everything else. The same thing needs to happen in the workplace, is that we as a culture, and we have to start it as us first, is we have to focus on admitting that the organization has limitations and can't do everything well. So corporately that needs to happen, but individually that needs to happen, and to put that stance on there. It might be something small and saying, I can't go over and do that because of the technology or because of the time or the threshold and everything else. I had to do that with my commander today, to go over and say, like, there's only so much I can go over and do. So I gave my actual limitations. Some of the things that I'm doing for new training records that are going on, it's going to take 3, 4, 6 months. He was authentic and real. And again, this is rare for me to go practice, but I'm learning this as I go, is that he allowed me to be vulnerable, and then he's vulnerable in what he can do in his conditions. So as I want to do that, then the organization can go over and do that. So as we go over and practice that, the organization. So if you are an entrepreneur and you are the lead in the business, you have to be the first example for that. So your co-workers, the people that are your subordinates, people that are in your leadership teams and management, if you're not going over and displaying that first and saying what limitations you can do and what you can't do everything well, things go over and now stay as a mask. A lot of businesses go over and crash because they try to go grab everything. Have you ever been to that nonprofit or business that tries to does everything on their own and they don't do collaboration and whatnot? Those companies are very few far in between. It's taken them decades, if not years and decades, to get to that point. But for us to go over and thrive, as we go into the boardroom, we need to go over and acknowledge our limitations, especially if we're in leadership. And it's not a bad thing, because if we go over and do that, there might be some other people that can go step up in the game, because I have a vulnerability, you have a vulnerability, but I might not have the same vulnerability as you. So in that particular regard, then that person can step in and be that backstop. On to the next one, what Doc McIntyre talks about, number 2, is focus means giving up on the things that you're heavily invested in, but just aren't working. So we might be going over and doing these processes over and over again. Tyranny of the urgent, you just keep going over and doing it, and it just ain't working. You keep pulling yourself by the bootstraps. That's what the military usually tells us. But the thing is innovation doesn't change if we don't go over and have this escalated commitment. And this escalated commitment is being committed to things that are of importance and not of urgent, things that are not thriving. One of the generals that just started in the Air Force, the CMASF, the Chief Command, it's been a long time. But anyway, there's a new general, I think his name is General Brown, and he said accelerate change or leave or accelerate change or whatever it is. I forgot the name of the comment. I know I'm really being fragmented on this part, but the long story short is that if we keep focusing on just because it's been done and just because it's a big program or just because it's there, then we are going to go over and live in that mask and that charade. And when things go over and collapse, it's going to be found out anyway. So let's figure out what's working and work with that instead of just investing into it. Just because you're heavily invested into one thing doesn't mean it's actually working. That happens the same thing with finances, stock options, anything in life, relationships that you're invested into that you might find out that just ain't working. So we need to be okay getting out of it. And that's another way to take off the mask is that even though you're heavily invested, if it's not working, you might just have to be authentic and say, it's not working. I need to jump out of it. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be weird. But the thing is that it's going to be fruitful. Another way to take off the mask by using focus is focus means saying no to good ideas in order to stay on track. You ever have the person that goes over and wants to keep face, or maybe you've done before and you keep face and you're just like, yes, I'm going to say yes to everything. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes. The thing is it takes a lot of time to go over and to add into those factors. So if you say yes just because it's a good idea, doesn't mean it's worthwhile. I did that all the time in business. Go over and someone would offer me an opportunity in marketing, sales, selling green bean coffee, all these other things. People offer me this stuff all the time. Just because it's a good idea doesn't mean you have to go over and say yes to everything. And if you're more of the sweet, sensitive, stable, status quo, shy person that likes to go over and keep face and keep things happy and whatnot, this would be hardest for you to go over and to say, if a good idea comes up and someone brings you an opportunity or an idea or asks us to be done something, and you go over, it's going to be hard for you to say no, but the opportunity cost is huge. If you're investing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours a day, you do that for 6 months, how much time you could have got back? How exhausted are you going to be? Even though you're fronting and saying, yeah, everything's awesome. And it's not, because you went into a good idea that was good for them, and it wasn't good for you, or wasn't good for the company, or wasn't good for the leadership, and you didn't want to ruffle feathers. So definitely something to go over and challenge you, and to challenge me that good ideas are going to come. And as you grow business, good ideas are going to come. For us to take off the mask and to be authentic in the boardroom, we need to sometimes say this word no, and it'll keep us on track better. The next one is focus means disappointing people whose initiatives don't make the cut. This is confrontation. Confrontation is hard because you're really putting yourself out there to go over and do that. So you might disappoint people. To grow a brand, to grow a mission, to grow things, you're gonna potentially disappoint people. You might disappoint your spouse by going over and doing something. But the thing is that as you go up, if you can't go deal with this in the small, you're not going to deal with this in the large. So we definitely need to start practicing this from start to finish. So the easiest part to go over and do this is start having some objectives to what you go over and do. Allow the facts to cut out those initiatives that don't make the cut. Be okay to disappoint people, because you will feel a lot better in the boardroom, be less stressed, be able to be more authentic, to take off that mask when you can start going over and doing that. And truly, people are going to be disappointed if you do things right or do things wrong. They're going to be disappointed if you say yes and then you can't keep up with it in your actions and your initiatives are no. So it's better to go over and to have the confrontation early in the game than have the confrontation later in the game, because you and that person, and as workload comes up, you're eventually going to crack in one regard or another, especially if you're committing to yes to everything. Confrontation is easier to deal with when it's small than it is when it's tall. So the last one, and this is probably the hardest one in focus. Again, Doc McIntyre got this right. I love this new article. We got this shared from my mill side, and it was fantastic. I thought, this is great. Is focus means making a choice and potentially taking the blame rather than hiding safely behind no decision. It can be hard to go over and sit by and just let the emails go fly, and you think it's easier by just not doing something. Well, that's a mask, that's a posture. If you don't go over and make a decision, you're going over like, it's safe. I didn't say yes, I didn't say no, but I'm saying later. People like me that are direct, are dominant, demanding, decisive, determined doers, we absolutely get pissed at those people we are so frustrated. We'd rather have you go say no and be straightforward than to go over and to just say nothing. We cut those people off. I mean, when meetings ain't happening and you apologize or you go over and you're not taking that personal responsibility, that it just keeps getting shoved off to this and shoved off to this and shoved off to that. At the end of the day, it's just easier just to go over and say. Now, when we wear the mask, it's very hard, but in the long run, if you start practices in the small, even as simple as going over and maybe refusing a meeting, maybe going over and cutting off on something, maybe going over and not doing something because you said no. You're like, hey, schedule's overloaded, can't go over and do that. Just go over and just keep it simple. That's going to make it a lot easier because we want you to be free. We want you to be authentic. And as you go over and practice this, again, you want to practice this with safe people. You want to practice this with people that you're going over and know, like, and trust. And these focus tactics is something very easily and transactionally you can practice without it getting too emotional. We're not asking you to go and admit all your emotions and your brokenness at the workplace, but as simple as going over and making a choice and taking the blame, than rather hiding safely behind no decision, especially if you're a supervisor or a manager. So this is simple, right? Yeah, in theory, but it's not easy. We understand that, and we want to challenge you, just like Karate Kid. He goes over, and it wasn't easy to go break 5 or 6 pieces of ice. Over time, it got easier. He obviously didn't just go in straight. He was practicing. So we want you to go over and practice this stuff. So our superhero challenge for today, as you're taking off the mask by bringing focus, is our superhero challenge is, how do you focus in the boardroom? Out of these 5 focus tactics, which way is easiest for you to take off your mask? Is it confrontation? Confrontation is easy for you compared to taking personal responsibility? What is the hardest for you? We'd love for you to join the conversation, no matter if you're on Facebook, you're on YouTube, if you're on the Easy Way wall, Roku, and even on Podopolo, which will be streaming live soon as Podopolo 2.0 is opening up. We're so excited for that, and thank you for Melinda Whitstock to go over and help us get connected to that. So I want to thank you for going over and joining. I want to give a shout out to Mikey Cohen, if you want to connect with him, and Julie Ann Meyer. They are part of the Joy Summit. So definitely, if you want to bring joy to your boardroom, you definitely want to connect with them. And again, I want to go thank one of our sponsors for our clothing is Ginger and Dave with Really Designs. Again, if you're wanting to wear our swag and go over and support our military veteran and first responder initiatives to help you thrive and not survive, go over and do that. So I want to thank you for that. So always, this is a conversation, always a dialogue, never a monologue, just like Mikey came over and joined the conversation by going over and saying, my favorite show and great shirt. You can join the conversations with your questions, with your comments and your concerns. And we'd love for you to go over and connect with us. So if you're struggling in the boardroom, in this place of taking off the mask, we'd love to go over and connect with you. We give 20 minutes to every military veteran first responder. And if you want to go over and take your leadership superhero skills and tactics to the next level, we'd love to connect you either patreon.com/ThriveNotSurvive, or hit us up on one of the social medias and go over and connect with us. We'd love to go over and connect either through consultation, workshops. We are here for you to go over and thrive. So thank you for going over and joining, and stay focused. Yeah. Thanks. All right. Bye.